Good morning, everyone. This is Nikachu, Merfolk Master. We are here with Coffee and MTG, day 121. The morning talk show where we discuss all things Magic the Gathering. Step 1, brew up your cup of coffee. And step 2, let's talk about Magic. First half of the show, we're going to talk all things Magic the Gathering, latest developments, news. If you got questions, you definitely believe that we're going to have the answers both between myself and the community. We love talking about Magic and answering questions. Second half, deck list review. If you've got a list that you need feedback on, you submit it and can be chosen at random to get some feedback on it. And what a wonderful day. Let's have the 121st day. Reminds me of Blackjack. Let's enjoy coffee and MTG this morning. We are already welcomed by Ancorian Hero and Realny5. Good morning to both of you. What are you brewing up this morning? You know, I let you all know what I have every morning. I've got a coffee. What are you guys drinking this morning? And as I await your responses, I'm going to move into the Magic channel. As we do this live at twitch.tv/NikachuMTG. If you want to be part of the discussion, be part of the conversation, see your comments pop up on here, you can join us Mondays to Fridays, 9 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. Twitch.tv/NikachuMTG. Good morning, Lord Magicus. Green iced tea. That's nice. Although, you know, I mean, I'm a huge fan of cold drinks, but because I come from Hoth, I mean, I come from a pretty damn cold climate. I'm done with the cold drinks for the season. I will not be reaching for another cold drink until, like, I don't know, May or June to next year. Can already feel it's already like minus. What is it? What is it right now? It's like minus 14 degrees Celsius. Don't know what that is in minus 14 Celsius into Fahrenheit. 6.8 degrees Fahrenheit out here. I think that's what it is. I know what the temperature is. It's like -7, but like it's not the real temperature here in Winnipeg. Because the real temperature in Winnipeg, yeah, feels like minus 13. It's like 10 in Poland. Well, you know what? I'm not from Poland. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. It's miserable here. I don't drink coffee or tea. Whatever floats your boat. Good morning, Cactus Ovishmok. Nothing. I work a midnight shift, so I usually go to bed after the show. Oh yeah, okay, sweet. Nice way to go to bed. Good morning, David. Good morning to the fish community and only the fish community. Not giving any hellos or good mornings to the Death Shadow community. No love for them either. Hello there. And I heard that, well, I don't know. So I'm getting mixed messages from the Death Shadow community. From one perspective, they're doing great. Their deck is on top. There's new life in the blood of their archetype, both with the Rakdos Shadow List and Scourge of the Skyclaves. But on the other hand, they get crushed by they can get crushed by Uro and Omnath because the life gain will completely undermine Scourge of the Skyclaves. So let's get Scourge of the Skyclaves up. So, like, for example, you know, you can, let's say you have Lurrus out, and you can regurgitate your Scourge of the Skyclaves from the graveyard a million times. It's meaningless if the opponent's life total is above 20. If it's above 20, Scourge of the Skyclaves is basically never going to come into play as anything, and you basically have to wait. You have to wait till your life total gets low enough with Death Shadow to get Death Shadow out. But Scourge of the Skyclaves just gets their legs chopped off by these life gain decks. Yeah, there's nothing unusual here. Nothing unusual at all. It's gonna snow probably by Halloween. It always does. Good morning, Panch Hernandez. In Italy, it's 18 to 20. It's nice. I will never complain about the weather here again. You know what? It's funny. When I was in Poland, the climate is similar. There's similar problems. Like in Poland, it also gets really cold and really hot, and not much in between. Except it's really cold and really dry and very windy, very, very windy. And it gets colder here. It gets colder than Poland. So like I hear the the polls. They love to complain about the weather, but the Winterpeggers, if anyone's ever heard of the term, get to complain even more. Now getting crushed by Merfolk Trickster. Yes and no. You know what? Like, I thought Merfolk Trickster would be a bomb against this card. It is, but the problem is that almost every Scourge of the Skyclaves deck is playing Lurrus right now. Like, they all do, and why not? So now that you have, like, more Tarmogoyf-like creatures at 2 mana, why not run Lurrus, if not as a companion, as just a random creature in your main deck? And they can, so, like, even if I snipe it off, I mean, it's good, it's not bad, I mean, I'm not going to complain, but they can just bring it back with Lurrus. And, I mean, I only got one Trickster trigger. I mean, unless, like, I guess I can copy the Trickster with Glasspool Mimicker, for example. But, like, whoops. But there's still, I have limited ways of doing this, and they have infinite ways of bringing back the Scourge of the Skyclaves. Is Life Gain the thing that makes Uro and Omnath broken? I would be inclined to say no. In my opinion, and you know what, different archetypes are going to feel about this differently. I think the Explorer aspect, specifically being able to put a land on the battlefield, is what pushes this deck pushes Uro over the top. Let's get Uro. And so here's Uro, and you know what? We can have a discussion about this. Like, what makes Uro broken? In your opinion, what makes Uro broken? Let's give Uro all the attention. For example, I hear from Francisco Pavlush, who is the Amulet Titan Master. He actually had trouble beating the control decks because actually they could compete with him on mana, and this is the part of control that is somewhat restricted by quite a bit. Usually control is playing one land drop a turn, but if you go like Growth Spiral and ramp yourself up, and Uro and ramp yourself up, all of a sudden you're playing like turn 4 Teferi, Hero of Dominarias, or like much more reliably. You get to the higher points of your curve a lot easier. The life gain is one thing, but the fact that it gives control decks a way of like just getting a bunch of mana on the battlefield and be able to cast your Cryptic Commands and Path to Exiles all in one shot and reliably curve out, I think is the real value of Uro. That really was the game changer that helped these control decks. And the same thing is with Omnath. I mean, Omnath tells a very similar story, because for every second land drop that hits the battlefield, you get 4 mana. So effectively, you have double the mana a turn. You know, you have four lands in play. Well, I mean, effectively 5, because you're going to play another land for the turn. If it's a fetch land, you basically double your mana. And the more mana a control deck has to work with, the better they can stabilize. The better they can play like Teferi, Time Reveler, plus hold up mana for counter spells. I mean, if let's say you play Omnath, they untap. They can play like Jace. They could, in theory, play Jace the Mind Sculptor, and then follow that up with a Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Sorry, not Hero of Dominaria. Teferi Time Raveler, because they could play a land, fetch, and they'll get the blue, white, and the generic mana. So that extra land helps them compete against any deck that would try to tempo them out, and it also competes with all the big mana decks. The fact that this sort of deck can compete on mana with Tron, with Amulet Titan, with probably normal. I don't know what the matchup is like, normal Tron versus this. It's a big deal. Like, Control's not supposed to have this much mana available to them, and they do now. So it's the mana advantage. Like, normally you can beat a control deck because they're usually choked on mana. Like, if you're a really fast deck, I mean, usually, like for example, Tron used to have a big advantage because they had so much mana, they could do so much more powerful things. And now a control deck has just as much mana as a Tron deck on average. As crazy as that sounds. I don't know if anyone's seen the screenshots between Omnath and Uro, but usually the board state is just 1 billion lands on the battlefield. Who needs Tron? We can just make 1 million land drops, play 2 lands a turn. You know? Could Amulet Titan use Omnath at some point? Probably not, because Omnath doesn't win on the spot, and a lot what Amulet Titan does is like win on the spot. And Omnath is not a tutor. Like, it's a good, great, efficient creature, but the moment that you play Amulet Titan, the moment you play the Primeval Titan, like what the value of Primeval Titan is it's a tutor for lands and puts them onto the battlefield, and is a win condition in itself. But Omnath is not a tutor. I mean, maybe there's a world where you play both and you get like a crazy amount of value. I don't know. It doesn't seem like something the deck needs. Because like when they need mana, they want 6 mana. They don't want 4. But I don't know. You know, I mean, it's possible. I shouldn't say anything's off the table. This would not be the weirdest thing to be jammed. Like first off, no one off the top thought that Uro belonged in a control deck. Like no one looked at Uro and said, yeah, that's going to be put in blue-white control. No one had that idea. Everyone is like, okay, how do we thought scour? How do we fill our graveyard? Maybe we can put this in the Dredgevine deck. Maybe we could put it in. There was like a lot of ideas for Uro, but none of them were blue-white control. And then eventually someone said, you know, why don't we just throw it in blue-white control? And then later, why don't we just throw it into the Urza deck? So the real solution was just putting a really big, powerful card in the shell of a normal deck. And maybe the same thing can be done here. So maybe it's possible. I'm not. It doesn't, from the surface, it doesn't look like it's possible. But you know what? I would not be surprised if we throw Omnath in an Amulet Titan deck or even other decks, and it proves its worth there. Good morning, Thomas. Winnipeg is in the middle of the Great Plains, right? Yes, it's in the middle of absolute nowhere. Good morning, Dire Wolf. What's your opinion on the current meta of Modern? Very healthy, very good. I think a lot of people complaining. There is some complaining out there, and I'm just guessing it's from people who their deck used to be good, and now it's not good in the current Modern metagame. But for the most part, I think anyone who's currently playing Modern is very happy with the environment. There's a lot of diversity and a lot of different decks, and like for the most part, everyone playing is very happy. There will always be someone who's not fully happy with Modern, but all things considered, this is a very healthy metagame. This is a very good metagame. Good morning, Hoax. Sounds like we need Pat to exile to get rid of this BS. Yes, for Scourge of the Skyclaves, I agree. Mild Bobby Sauce, hello? It sounds too much like Oko. Yeah, Oko was also a lot of value. Bubble Snare is basically blue. I don't know what Bubble Snare is. Never heard of it. Okay, Bubble Snare. Oh, this is a new card. Enchant creature. When Bubble Snare enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, tap enchanted creature. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. You know what? I can't really say that this is a blue Path to Exile. Creature is still there. Can still block if the creature wasn't tapped. Yeah, that's about it. Needs to do more. I think is there not like a blue enchantment that says enchanted creature does not untap? I can't help but feel like this is not even the best version of this type of card. But because there's a lot of stuff like that. Like a card that I actually think is very playable. I'm so close to putting this in my sideboard. What's it called? What is the blue one with flash that taps red or green creatures and they don't untap? Something Frost or something like that. Someone help me out here. What's it called? No, it's not Frost Breath. Encase and Ice. There we go. I think this is very close to Modern playable. This is very close. I was like this close to adding, like, I think this is like one of the better cards that I think I could play against Mono Red Prowess, because I don't even want to kill the creatures anymore because they just come back from Lurrus, you know? So anyway, this is a blue and a generic, which gives you some synergy with Master of Waves because it adds to Devotion. Flash, enchant red or green creature, which there is a lot of in the modern metagame. And when Encase and Ice enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So I actually think this is really damn close to being modern playable. I have not pulled the trigger on this card, but I gotta keep it in mind because it's instant speed. Instant speed. So you can hold up Counter Magic, or you can hold up Encase and Ice, or Merfolk Trickster, or whatever. But this is like the closest I feel like blue has to removal. Like actual, activated abilities can still be activated, but this I feel is the closest I can get to removal. Anyway, where did I leave off here? With all of you fine, wonderful people showing up today at Coffee and MTG, day 121. What would Coffee and MTG be without the coffee? Omnath is technically 0 mana in their deck. That is correct. Like, because it's cheap. You get the rebate. So, well, I mean, if you played on turn 5, you can get that land. You can get a 5th land in play. It will be free. Omnath sounds really good if the meta is really aggro, but pretty much anything can and has been tossed in Amulet. Yeah. Well, there's still more experimentation. Or it doesn't even necessarily need to be Amulet. It could be another Titan deck, another Titan deck. Can Omnath into Uro, into Wrath? That's right. That's exactly what they do. Primetime and Uro for Titan Tribal. There we go. Ban all fetches. That is a point of discussion that has come up once in a while. Do we ban the Fetchlands in Modern? I can't remember. I think it was like the pros wanted the Fetchlands banned a long time ago, but in the end, Wizards didn't do it. And to some extent, it has made a problem. But okay, here's my take on the Fetchlands. I think we should have the Fetchlands. I think Modern is going to be... I think if you wanted a format without Fetchlands, that's Pioneer. And Wizards made the format for you. If you really wanted a format without Fetchlands, Pioneer is there for you. But if you wanted a format without reserved list cards that act the closest to something like Legacy, that's Modern. And in Modern, you have not the best mana, not Legacy mana, but we have very good mana, and that good that great mana it's significantly attributed by the Fetchlands. Not to mention, there's so many strategic nuances with the Fetchlands. Like, for example, what we see with Omnath. Omnath can break... is broken more or less because of the Fetchlands. So anyway, I'm pro Fetchlands. I understand. Maybe I'm only pro Fetchlands because I don't need them. I don't need to use Fetchlands, so I don't care if they exist or not. And then for the people who need the Fetchlands, they'll have a different opinion about it. Because I don't want to spend all this money on Skull. Does some people realize you don't even need to play with something like, if you're building a burn deck, you don't need to run Scalding Tarn. You can use the other ones, Pay very, very close attention to the Fetchlands. This is $24? Wow. Has time flown? When did cons come out? Maybe like 7 years ago, 6 years ago? It's been a while, actually. It's been a while. I would like to think it hasn't been, but it has been a while. Fetchlands have risen in price. I remember when you were like 10 Canadian dollars. Nobody wanted you. And now I'm sure everyone wants you. And no Fetchland reprints in sight. Why would they ever ban the fetches? Because a lot of people don't like them. They don't like that they are... So here's the deal. The Fetchlands make your mana base perfect, but if you ban the Fetchlands, you would still have a really good mana base in Modern. You would. We've got... okay, well, let's talk about all the good lands in Modern. Maybe this could be a discussion point for today. What are all the good lands in Modern that are not Fetchlands? Like the fast lands themselves are really good. Sea, Chrome, Coast. Like lands like this, they're incredibly good. Enter the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. So basically it's coming into play tapped until it's your 4th land. So you have the early mana that you need, and you don't have to look, and you don't have to search your deck for it. So we got, yeah, the fast lands are incredible. Now, check lands are a little difficult. They're a little bit more tricky, but they are still pretty good. Now let's look up Glacial Fortress, because these are a little bit more clunky pending how you build the deck. If so the Glacial Fortress enters the battlefield tapped unless you control plains or island. Now, if you build the deck properly, this is not going to be a big deal. However, I will admit, if you try to build a deck without fetch lands, the deck will be, this will be a clunkier card. Like if your deck is full of Seachrome Coasts and like as was mentioned here, the creature lands was Celestial Colonnade. I can't spell Celestial Colonnade. If your deck is full of these things, then Glacial Fortress will enter the battlefield tap more often. Like, yeah, these creature lands are very, very good. But if you fill your deck with creature lands and all these other lands, then the check lands end up being not so good. I'm not for the pain lands, to be honest. I think the pain lands are only good. So if let's take was a dark. We're gonna stick to blue-white. A Darkar Wastes. I think the pain that you take from these lands is significant and will be a massive strategical disadvantage at a competitive level. No, if you ban fetch lands, no one would be playing with the Darkar Wastes except an Eldrazi deck or a deck that desperately needed the colorless mana out of this. Basic lands, yes. It's snow covered plains. Let's just look up snow covered plains. Basic lands. You just play with some more of them. They're not that bad. Underrated basic lands. I can't remember the pain lands. Like I said, if you can use the colorless mana by a lot, then it's not so bad. And I know that Storm, for example, can use the colorless mana by quite a bit. And they'll, again, the Eldrazi decks, they use the colorless mana because they need... So for an Eldrazi deck, this is a 3-color land to them. But outside... it's what I'm trying to get at is it's very nichely used. Like a control deck would never look at a Darkar Waste. They would have to play something else. We got the modal lands. So, oh, do we have a blue-white one? Is there a blue-white modal land? Because I know them somewhere in development. I don't know what the names of these lands are. We got tribal lands. Well, those are very... I mean, those do exist. Like Wanderwine Hub. But they're very narrow to this very specific archetypes. Shocklands! You just play the Shocklands. What's it called? Hollow. No. There we go. I mean, don't spend 3 life looking for this land. Just spend 2 life. Simple as that. If you don't want to spend life, then just don't pay any life. Just put the thing into play tapped. Simple as that. Hollowed Fountain. The lands with sack and draw have outed so many games for me. So now for the correct archetypes, the Horizon lands. Now control decks would not be able to play this, but let's just look at Horizon Canopy. So like, and this is a really good one. This deals damage to you. So this is like, because if you're gonna play something like a Darkar Wastes, you might as well play the Horizon land for the most part. I mean, I know you can't tap this for colorless mana, but but for the decks that are going to want this, and a lot of decks do, like Horizon lands have been a massive contributor to not flooding out in so many different archetypes. We see Burn play this, we see Prowess play this, we see Death Shadow play this, we see Merfolk play this, we see humans, of course, always played this. Any green deck, Elves, Counters Company, Devoted Devastation, basically the same deck. Play these lands. So I mean, if you're not a control deck, you definitely can play these lands. And basically, almost every single color in the color pie uses these. Temples are meh, but really cheap. Some decks want the temples. So if you're some, like, for example, Ad Nauseam uses the temples. Not too bad. Then we've got Ancient Ziggurat. I think we're going to see more deck. Basically, tribal decks have access to this. For the most part, like, well, I mean, they're using these things anyway. So maybe this is not a good example. Because even though they have access to Fetchlands, they opt not to play these cards. Mistvale Plains. At the risk of outing my pet favorite deck, Mistvale Plains is the best land in Modern. ETB tap. Put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. Activate this ability only if you control 2 or more white permanents. Nice card, but not really a mana fixer. Ghost Quarters and Tectonic Edges, why worry about your colors when you can just deprive the opponents of theirs? And actually, Ghost Quarter, to some extent, is a mana fixer. Actually, okay, so let's talk about this. Field of Ruin, to some extent, is a mana fixer. Because you're going to sack 2, or you're going to pay 2, sacrifice this, and then find the land that you need. I'm curious to know if Reflecting Pool would see play if they ban the Fetchlands. Probably not. But maybe. Yeah, we went over the Horizon Lands. Horizon Lands and Modern Horizons 2 for Azorius? Well, that's the question. Like, are they going to do it? They might. The problem is that they already announced that they're going to reprint the enemy Fetchlands. So if they reprint the enemy Fetchlands, do they have room for the allied Horizon Lands? I don't know. I don't know. That's a question we won't have answered until because we can expect them to have like one land, like bomb land cycle in Modern Horizons, but we already know it's the enemy Fetchland. So what are the odds that they would have 2 bomb land cycles in the same set? Why would they go all in like that? It's very unusual for Wizards of the Coast. But so the point is, like, we've got really good... We also have the filter lands, of course. The filter lands are totally fine. What are those filter lands? I don't know what the blue one was. Mystic Gate. So Mystic Gate, if you are heavy on blue and white sources, then this is a very good land for you. Actually, this is just strict upgrade to Adarkar Wastes, right? The only difference is that Adarkar Wastes... So a Adarkar Waste can add blue or white mana on turn 1. This one can't. You have to tap in 2 or more. Didn't they reprint all 10 filters in Modern Masters? I don't remember. I do not know. I mean, I see this one. I think it's reasonable that enemy fetch plus allied horizons could be in the set for color balance. It's possible. There's a lot of situations, though, they don't balance colors. They just like, okay, these colors are going to have an advantage. The other ones are not. I actually doubt City of Brass would see Modern play if they ban the fetch lands. I very, very sincerely doubt it. This one, City of Brass is very painful. It's just straight up shoots you in the face. It's not that good. Unclaimed Territory is good, but Unclaimed Territory is already played by the decks that don't play fetch lands. Oh, yeah, Grove of the Burned Willows. Mikey J is asking about, what's that? What's that land that Red Green Tron used to use? Some type of grove. Some type of groove. Grove of the Burned Willows. Can add, what set? Did this come out in Future Sight? Like, what's the OG set of this? Because this is like... Looks like it's from a cycle of lands that don't exist right now. Yeah, it was OG Future Sight. It's a very pretty artwork, yes. Very pretty artwork. I would be really pissed. I got 6 allied Zendikar fetches. Well, that's the thing. I don't think they're going to ban fetch lands in Modern. But like what I was trying to say is that some like 5-6 years ago, Wizards of the Coast polled the pros all the time about Modern, and they asked them, like, what do you think should change? And I don't know if it was unanimous or not, but a lot of top players said you should ban the Fetchlands. The Fetchlands are not relevant. They're expensive. They make the games boring because you're constantly, fetching and crap like that. And we all know how that turned out. Not only did Wizards of the Coast not ban the Fetchlands, but they also printed the Fetchlands in Khans of Tarkir. So they actually brought Fetchlands back to standard. Much to I don't was it even that bad? I mean, I really don't care about the whole shuffling aspect of Fetchlands. It's not that big of a deal to me, in my opinion. We're shuffling our decks constantly for other reasons anyway. But anyway, the point is that the argument was made that the mana in Modern is so damn good as it is. There's already so many good lands that the Fetchlands aren't even really that necessary. They're technically better, but it's not that much better than if you had a format without the Fetchlands. And of course, we have the dual modal lands coming out, so that's going to make mana even better. Yeah, Field of Ruin, I think, is a mana fixer, in my opinion. The Karoo lands, I don't think that's a good one. What's the blue? I'll just go let Simic Growth Chamber. I do not, outside of Amulet, no one wants to play these lands. Because you are at such risk if your opponent, like, Ghost Quarters this thing. You tempo yourself out big time. The only reason this works in the Titan decks because they get extra land drops from Dryad of the Elysian Grove and Azusa and other cards like Arboreal Grazer. And also they play Amulet, so this land can come into play untapped, and they actually get mana from it before they bounce something back to their hand. But outside of that, this is a huge liability. I mean, if you get Field of Ruined or Ghost Quartered, you're set back by an entire turn. I mean, you're basically doing nothing when you put this land into play. Oh, Prismatic Vista. Well, this is a fetch land, though. But whatever. Let's say they put this. This was in Modern. Absolutely would be you know what? No, you know what? You know what would be a problem with this? Everyone would need it. And there's only one. There's only one. So yeah, there's only one. If this is the only fetch land in the format, everyone's going to need this. The price of this would go like $200. So either we have fetch lands, or we have no fetch lands. There are two printing. That's not enough. That is most definitely not enough. Oh, I forgot about Fabled Passage. Now, Fable Passage is fair. Now, this card may not see play everywhere. How many sets are Prismatic Vista? Isn't that much? Oh, they have. Well, it's basically only Modern Horizons. Zendikar Expedition doesn't really count. Now, Fabled Passage is a totally different story because this card probably still would see a lot of play. To be honest, you'd still see a lot of play. But the cost in Modern of not having the land come into play untapped is it's a pretty big deal. That's pretty bad. Rupture Spire lands? I have no idea what that is. Can you give me an example? But won't all decks be Titan decks? No, of course not. I mean, we already have many decks that are not Titan decks and they don't use fetches. What about humans? What about Death and Taxes? They don't use fetch lands. What about Merfolk? Some news. Star City Games launched a program where they'll basically do the work of sorting and buy listing your cards for you if you want to sell them. So that's interesting. So what happens? You give them your cards, they sort it, and then they give you a price. Sounds like the new program that Channel Fireball has, except they're not guaranteeing to sort your cards. I have a feeling you're going to pay for it. They're going to lowball you by quite a bit in order to compensate for the time that they're sorting your cards. And they're probably going to do... Well, I'm curious to know what the sorting is like, but I guess you can just send it to them for free. For nothing. Or, I mean, you might pay... You would pay something because you have to pay the shipping for them to sort the cards, and you're just going to decline any offer that they make. Interesting, though. Interesting. If fetch reprint in Horizons 2 is a joke, then Wizards of the Coast will see pitchforks. I don't think the reprinting is going to be a joke. I think the supply thing might be a joke though. Like they turned the faucet off really quick for Modern Horizons 1, and hence cards like Force of Negation shot up in price. Because they said it's just going to be like the Fetchlands are going to be at rare. You know, pretty fair, but it's pointless of it being at rare if they're not printing genuinely to demand. I was brainstorming with a friend about alternative fetch prices, like your opponent may scry 1 or your opponent gets 2 life. Would be interesting what versions would be played in which deck. That is interesting. That is interesting. I don't know if that is design space that Woods of the Coast wants to go down. Well, because, okay, so here's the thing. Let's say you made a fetch. There are some disadvantages to this. Okay, maybe the scry one would be more fair. I think the life gain one, I think control decks would rather you have a lot of life than for them to ever sacrifice their own. And I also think the same would be true for combo players. For example, a combo deck may not care how much life, like Infect would just let you gain all the life you want because they're never trying to beat you with damage. It's a very niche situation. But their life total is much more important, so they would rather play with these sort of fetch lands where they gain life instead, where you gain life instead of them costing themselves life. On the other hand, the scry one is interesting because you actually, okay, say you don't pay life to get your cards in play, but you're actually helping your opponent find answers to you, helping them sculpt their deck. So that actually sounds like a real cost. John Decide, have a good day, Nikachu. Off to work. Good luck in your games today. Oh, no streaming today, just Coffee and MTG. But thank you very much and good luck at work. Crush it. Crush work. Destroy them. Go undefeated. Win all your die rolls at work. Do it. Scrying is way... Well, I mean, depending... The thing is, the decks... Like, a burn deck is not going to play with the fetch lands that gain life. All the decks that care about gaining life are going to... Are just going to play with the paint, like the normal fetch lands that deal damage to you. So that it sounds like... if the punishment is a scry, that might be a very even equilibrium for a deck like maybe Control that doesn't really want to sacrifice their life total, and maybe they're willing to give you a scry in compensation, and they're just going to hope to deal with it somewhere down the line because they're going to be about resource advantages, so they just want to keep their life total high. Yeah, so anyway, that's a very interesting design. Death Shadow decks with +2 life. That would be actually interesting. Just completely undermine Death Shadow with the fetch lands. So you would nail them in 2 ways. First, you don't gain life. Sorry, you don't lose life, and you're actually making your opponent gain life, which is actually going to be a disadvantage for some particular types of decks. That is interesting to think about. Some time ago, I thought of lands that ETB untapped if you let your opponent exile a card or 2 from your graveyard. That is also interesting. That's also interesting design space. But again, it would probably get abused by decks that do not care about their graveyard. And then effectively, you've got like a... It might be too much effectively like a Tundra or a Underground Sea. We all know that if they make new fetches, it will reward you rather than punish you. Thanks, Fire Design. Mana Confluence. These cards are not seen. These cards don't really see play. Well, do you know what? It was a one of in Spirits and Pioneer for a little while. Might still be. But for the most part, these are very painful lands. Like, taking 1 damage a turn, casting your cards adds up just so quickly. You just get killed. I think it's a good idea to reward decks by abusing the graveyard with good mana. The next fetch is going to not cost any life, RIP value for all old fetches. I don't think they're necessarily going to make better... Well, I mean, they might make better fetch lands. That's possible. But I get the sense that Wizards wants to make money off of the Fetchlands. They want to make money off the Fetchlands. The Fetchlands are like their gold. So like they know how much you love those Fetchlands. Even the Commander players love Fetchlands. It's just technically the best land. Technically. I mean, even I want to use Fetchlands in my Commander deck because of like Mystic Sanctuary. Spider Space. Good morning. Good morning to the Death and Taxes Master. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so it won't work if your graveyard is empty. That is interesting design. So you have to fill your graveyard. But but your graveyard is going to be potentially filled with the Fetchlands. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to look. Do they have to exile 2 non-land cards from your graveyard? Oh, what's better? Okay, Mana Confluence versus City of Brass. So there is a difference between the two. This one has a trigger. Whenever City of Brass becomes tapped, it deals 1 damage to you. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So here's the deal. The downside to City of Brass is that if I tap this with Mirror Regery, or if any deck taps the City of Brass in any way, it doesn't matter if City of Brass is tapping for mana. It does not matter. If City of Brass gets tapped, you take 1 damage. You're taking the damage no matter what. Unlike Mana Confluence, if I tap this with Mirror Regery, you don't take the damage. So your opponent can force you to take the damage. Now here's the advantage with City of Brass. Whenever you add mana of any color to your mana pool, you don't take the damage immediately. This is a trigger that goes on the stack. How to abuse that? I don't know. So I believe City of Brass does have its advantages. You do get the mana before the damage resolves, right? I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Mana Confluence is better since opponent can't tap it. I would imagine City of Brass might be better for combo decks if you can win at instant speed. Yeah, and maybe you can prevent the damage from City of Brass. So it's situational. I don't know which one's better. I barely see play out of either of these. City of Brass adds mana before damaging, so you can do instant speed stuff before losing the life. Good morning, Nikachu. Good morning, all. Nikachu, what if all tribal decks were more like slivers? Well, it's becoming more like slivers. It feels like every single deck does all other of this. Well, I mean, okay. Let's say if it was exactly like slivers, where it's global. You know, everything is like a Lord of Atlantis. All other creatures of this type get this ability. All humans get +1/+. When Thales Lieutenant enters the battlefield, not only does the humans player get +1/+1 counters, but also the opponent's creatures get +1/+1 counters. It'd be chaos. It'd just be absolute chaos. For example, you have 7 mana and want to cast an Uro and escape him right away, and you use use a city for the escape. Opponent can crack a relic. Huh? I don't get it. You are at 1 life and your opponent is at 3. You can bolt with the City of Brass to kill the opponent. Yes, that's correct. But I don't understand this example. For example, if you have 7 mana and want to cast an Uro and escape him right away, you use a city for the escape. Opponent can crack a relic. I don't know what the point here is, though. I don't get it. With Urborg, Confluence is better. I think it depends on the deck that you want to put this in. Like it just depends. You know that you have two options. Yeah, mana Confluence life loss is part of the cost. Normally the opponent doesn't get priority before you use the escape ability, so Uro can't be attacked in the graveyard. But if you use City of Brass, there is a trigger on the stack the opponent can react to. Oh, I see what you mean. No, but hold on. If you have 7 mana, just don't tap the City of Brass until you escape it. You pay pay 3 mana to put Uro in the graveyard. You're going to get priority immediately, and then you use exile it with City of Brass. Like, that's the way I see it. Well, I mean, if you're going to do it the opposite way, you're just like missequencing how you're playing your cards. Oh, there. If you have 4 cities, your opponent won't be able to crack the Relic of Progenitus. Got him. Just got him. Could you see a miracle style effect for lands? This land ETBs untapped if it is the first card you've drawn this turn. That's possible. That's possible. And it's also interesting because there's another cost associated with this, because you have to show the land, like, or you would basically tell your opponent, I top deck a land, so my hand has not changed since last turn, because it's, you know, at a competitive level, you have to start thinking about how your opponent's draw steps have affected their current hand for the last few turns. And let's say your opponent has not played any removal spells for 2 turns in a row on your creatures, and then all of a sudden they miracle a land into play off the top of their deck. Now you still know that they do not have any removal for your creatures. You control Liliana the Veil, and the opponent controls a Rest in Peace. You use Liliana the Veil's plus ability for each player to discard a card. You discard a swamp, and your opponent discards Loxodon Spider. What happens? Loxodon Spider just enters the battlefield, right? I believe that's how it is. Oh, hold on. No, I think Smiter just goes to the battlefield, because it never goes to the graveyard. I'm not a judge, and so like all these niche like you know, I'm pretty good with the rules, but I mean, I don't know all the rules. Loxodon Smiter can't be countered. If a spell or an ability an opponent controls causes you to discard Loxodon Smiter, put it onto the battlefield instead of putting into your graveyard. So it never goes to the graveyard. It's not like if it was worded something like, if Loxodon Smiter would go to the graveyard from your hand, put it on the battle, like return it to the battlefield or something like that, then there might be a problem. But it's never going to the graveyard. Like old Rest in Peace does, is things that go to the graveyard just don't go there. Yeah, it just never goes to the graveyard. So if your opponent, if someone takes up Liliana the Veil, when there's a Rest in Peace in play and Loxodon Spider is getting discarded, I think it just goes to the battlefield. What about a dual land that comes into play untap but exiles X number of cards from the library? That's probably not a significant downside. Maybe some decks won't play it, but most decks will. Here's an idea for a fetch line. Tap, exile this card, create a token, mountain, forest, plain, swamp, or island. That is interesting. So those are going to be more vulnerable to like bounce spells. There's actually some nuances to this. Yeah, because of 2 replacement effects taking place, you get to choose which one you want. I mean, we might need a real judge here. How many real judges do we have? We must have some level 10 judges in the chat right now. The judges love me. The judges love me. I love the judges too. Any level 2s in the chat? Level 2s for sure would know. Just say you're a level 2, and boom, I'll just believe you for eternity. And okay, so I think this is also a good time to transfer to exclamation point deck review. If you want your deck list reviewed, any format except Commander. I can't interpret Commander decks. Yeah, submit it. Go use the command exclamation point deck review space, give the URL to your deck list, and also leave any comments that you would like to leave. Please let me know what format it is. Is it a budget deck or not? Also, what do you need help for? Do you want to help with your sideboard? Is there some deck that you can't beat? Leave us the feedback. Give us the information, and we can give you the adequate feedback. And before we get into that, we are going to thank my sponsors. TheManaBase.com, your home base for everything Magic the Gathering. And also, the Manabase is sponsored by Fusion Gaming Online, my favorite local game store. And remember, I have no idea how everyone on the internet can transfer their cards, but their deal of the week this week is 35% trade-in bonus. Limited time offer. They don't do this that often. They might do it twice a year. This is your moment. Get some value out of your Skyclave Apparitions, the Kozilek Butcher of Truth, your Cabal Coffers, basically your Mox Diamonds. Oh, they took Gaia's Cradle off the list. They must have bought enough Gaia's Cradles now. They want all your Mox Diamonds. There's not enough Mox Diamonds in stock. Go check it out at fusiongamingonline.com. And also, I'd love to thank Mana Traders, the premier place to rent Magic cards online. You can support the channel by using my Mana Traders link in the description below. If you are looking to play one of the hottest decks on the block right now, don't buy into any deck. Just play the best deck all the time with Mana Traders. Or you can also support the channel by using my coupon code Nikachu to get your first 3 months 15% off. We got a level 8 judge here. Beautiful. I love level 8 judges. I guess that you could float to escape your Uro, but in that case, your opponent would have to guess properly to crack their relic before. Oh, that's a clever idea. Well, okay, it's tricky, right? Okay, so I guess it's not going to work. So what Werebear Activist wants to do is take City of Brass. So let's say we have an Uro in hand with 7 mana, 4 City of Brasses. We have 5 cards in our graveyard, I guess. You tap all the City of Brasses for mana, let all the triggers resolve, and then play your Uro. No matter what, it doesn't matter. Like, once they see the Uro on the battlefield, they can still crack the relic to exile whatever 5 cards are in the graveyard to play around Uro. And though the Uro will be in the graveyard, they can't escape it anyway. Whatever. This is like a moot thing, but like I see what Activist was trying to do. It's funny. I am a judge of the Supreme Magic Court. We need more to make sure that like Modern isn't going to go to hell. All right, let's do some deck list review. These are all picked at random, by the way, by my beautiful deck review bot. And you can, of course, keep submitting deck lists as we're doing this, as we get into it. Balada's deck list has been chosen. Death and Taxes with 12 fish and 4 fake fish. Oh, imposters. I'm trying to balance color and looking for good suggestions for number of cards and balance on the whole. There is an imposter among us. Fish and Taxes by Balada. Balada loves to brew. 2 Flicker Wisp, 2 Giver of Runes, 2 Glasspool Mimic, 4 Harbinger of the Tides, 4 Leon and Arbiter, 2 Lord of Atlantis, Trickster, 4 Tricksters, 2 Maraudry, Skyclave Apparition, 4 Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, 2 Unsealed Mariner, a Darkar Waste, Ghost Quarter, Hollow Fountain, Seachrome Coast, Silent Clearing, Snow-Covered Island, Plains, Wanderwine Hub, and a Waterlogged Grove. We do have Ether Vials in here. Okay, 4 Path to Exile, Burnt and Forge Tender, Deputy of Detention, Mirren Crusader, Phyrexian Revoker, Rest in Peace, 2 Stony Silence, 2 Winds of Abandon. So if we're going to go down to this direction, the only thing that I would change is probably I would take out the Reedry and add more Lord of Atlantis. Oh, actually, hold on. We don't even have Master of the Pearl Trident in here, right? I don't really see the synergy of having any of the Lords in here because the Lords don't pump up anything else. You might as well just have 4 Harbinger of the Tides, 4 Tricksters, and that's it, right? And just add more of add other cards like Giver of Runes. Like, you can play with the Trixie part of like these cards, Merfolk Trickster and Harbinger. Like there's some synergy there, right? Like you're still taxing your opponent, and then after they've lost their how do I put it? If they lose their mana and they attack with their creature, you can bounce it back to their hand with Harbinger of the Tides. We need more lands? Oh yeah, do you know what? 21 lands. Even normal Death and Taxes runs 23, right? We got the right person here. We got the right person here. So we got Spider Space. Okay, so Spider Space, what would you say? Of all the, like, I don't think the Lords should be in here. Because I don't think we have nearly enough Merfolk. So which of these Merfolk are valuable? Harbinger of the Tides, Merfolk Trickster, Unsettled Mariner. I'm guessing that what we have to do is we have to gut the Mare Regeries for 2 more lands, and I would say gut the Lord of Atlantis for just 2 more Unsettled Mariner, and then we just have, like, Trickster and Harbinger. Oh, I forgot about the Mimic. So we do have lands. We have Glasspool Mimic in here, but you want to play it as 20. You want to have 4x with. Oh, you'd run Mimic 2 as 4x with 21 lands, but not 4x with 22 lands? The idea of. But it's just like a random Grizzly Bear for the most part. Or the other thing you could do is you could cut Lord of Atlantis and add Regery. Regery has some synergy because you can tap things down with Unsettled Mariner. You can tap and bounce things with Harbinger of the Tides, and you can double tap with Merfolk Trickster. So, at the very least, take out Lord of Atlantis, add Mare Regery, and Trickster and Harbinger will have synergy with the Regery. Lord of Atlantis, like, you have no synergy with Lord of Atlantis. There's just not enough Merfolk here, and you have no way of enabling Island Walk either. Well, we might do it with yeah, like, well, I mean, we're gonna win with Grizzly Bears. That's just how it is. We're gonna win with Grizzly Bears. But now that I look at it, okay, you have the lands already because you have Glasspool Mimic, so you have a 23 land deck. So you might as well have maybe 1 more Glasspool Mimics in all of these. How many white sources do you have? 3, 5, 10, 14. 15. When I mean about Mimic is 21 Mimic, or sorry, 2x Mimic and 20 lands isn't enough. Why not? So you want 4 Mimic and 21 lands? Is that what you said? That sounds like a lot of lands. But you would know. All right, so we're being suggested that we should have 4 Mimic and 21 lands. I guess goodbye Unsettled Mariner. Because the tap... Oh yeah, the tap is a real cost. I know. I know the feeling. Also, if you're running Vials, you shouldn't have more than 20 lands. There's a lot of decks that run more than 20 lands. Just keep in mind that Merfolk is the only deck that is so short on mana sources compared to other decks with Vial. Like, even Humans has 19 lands, but they have 4 Noble Hierarch in addition to their 4 Ether Vials. So they're running a lot of mana. And Death and Taxes also runs 23 lands plus 4 Ether Vial. Mana Hungry Taxes. Remember, Ghost Quarter is a spell. Keep that in mind. Ghost Quarter. This is not mana. This is friend, not food. Path to Exile seems really strange in the main with Thalia. That's just how Taxes is. There's a lot of non-bows in Death and Taxes, but it still works out. You have to play with the non-bows. You usually use Vial to bring in everything in with a few lands, since Merfolk is a control/aggro deck. I think if there was more mana that we could use, we would use it. Like, that's the point with Glasspool Mimic these days. We're going over 20 lands because all I can tell you is that with 20 lands and 4 Vial, that is what we traditionally do, but we get really choked on mana, like, pretty often. I think Merfolk gets choked on mana very, very, very often. Frankly, I want to go up to 24 lands for mono white. Give us a green 1-mana Merfolk Druid that taps for mana. And taxes is definitely more controlling than merfolk. So like that's the advice here. We need to add more mana sources. I don't know, maybe you got to gut the Unsettled Mariner, and I would replace Lord of Atlantis with Mirror Regery. The other option is you take out all the lords, play 2 more Unsettled Mariner, and then play 2 more lands in addition to that, and boom, you got fish and taxes. Thank you very much, Balada, for the submitting the deck. So yeah, cut 2 lords and put in Glasspool Mimic. Any other suggestions, main or side? Well, I think I just gave you my suggestions. Can't really recommend much for the sideboard. Sideboard is fine. Deck review pick. It's the main deck that's a bit weird. Spider Space's deck list has been chosen. So how much work have you put into this deck, Spider Space? Like, are you playing this thing regularly? Sounds like you're putting in some work. What if Simic Merfolk played Noble Hierarch? You fled out more often. What ends up happening, I've actually played quite a bit with Noble Hierarch. What ends up happening is the opponent, against the attrition-based decks, they'll ignore it, and they'll just kill your creatures, and then you find out you just don't have that much gas in the end. So you end up getting weaker. The ramp doesn't compensate for the fact that you watered down your deck. So the key is that we want mana sources that are still threats. I haven't played this one yet at all. All right. Oh, I love the look of this thing. We've got Inverter in Modern, which, by the way, had a 5-0 like a few weeks ago. And I was always wondering, like, why. Obviously, this is now officially a banned combo in Pioneer. Why doesn't anyone try to make this thing in Modern? Okay, you don't have Dig Through Time or Treasure Cruise. Who cares? This is like really, really good. The combo is amazing. So 2 Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, 4 Thassa's Oracle, 4 Inverter, and of course to shrink the graveyard down, we're going to use the Tasigur, the Golden Fang, 3 Thoughtseize, 2 Inquisition. I don't know what the right number of these are, of course. Do we have more in the sideboard? Oh, we don't. We don't have more in the sideboard. 4 Fatal Push, 2 Cling to Dust, 4 Thought Scour. Why Thoughts? I can't remember. Did they use Thought Scour? No, they didn't use Thought Scour. Is there a reason to fill the graveyard outside of feeding Tasigur? Because it just makes Inverter worse. 2 Logic Knot, 2 Archmage's Charm, 3 Force Negation, 2 Cryptic Command. I just would imagine that like any of the other cantrips are more worthwhile than Thought Scour, like even Opt, for example. Just to like, didn't the OG list play with Opt? I know this helps turn on, for the most part, Tasigur, but I think it would also make it more difficult to combo off. Now we've got Watery Grave, Island, Swamp, Mystic, at least 1 Mystic Sanctuary, Sunken Hollow, Sunken Ruins, Pluto Delta, Scalding Tarn, 2 Misty Rainforest, a Flooded Strand, and Shelldock Isle. You may remove the card without paying its mana cost if a library has 20 or fewer cards in it. Oh, it's trying to fuel Logic Knot. Do we need this? Like, do we really need this? Is this really so much better than, like, Mana Leak? I mean, maybe it fuels like Mystic Sanctuary in a way that I'm not thinking about. Sideboard, Ceremonious Rejection, Nihil Spellbomb, 4 Ether Gust, 2 Ashiok Dream Render, 2 Mystical Dispute, 2 Damnation. I think the list is very clean, but I think for a I just figure, I wonder if there's any way to push more Planeswalkers in here. Not also. Oh yeah, I forgot. Actually, you know what? I like that. I like that. Being able to exile the graveyard with Logic Knot, that actually sounds really, really good. So you can just suck your entire graveyard out, and even if they only have 1 mana to pay, you can just exile your entire graveyard to Logic Knot them. So actually, that sounds like a really smart idea. Now I'm just getting back. Is there any like other planeswalkers we could just play in here? And also, do we need to go blue-black? Could we go Esper? Well, okay, whatever. Let's stick with blue-black, for example. Is there no room for, say, a Jace the Mind Sculptor or a Narset? What does Narset do? Maybe Narset's useless. I don't think Narset can find creatures, right? Yeah, it's a non-creature, so that sucks. Okay, you're useless, Narset. So that's why we never played you before. No, I don't know if Narset would be a good card. You can find Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, but you can't find Thassa's Oracle, and you can't find Inverter of Truth. Actually, yeah, Tassiger should be really good because you can dig back Thassa's Oracle or Inverter of Truth. Well, I mean, your opponent's not going to let you, but pending what's in the graveyard, then they might just have to do it. Liliana Last Hope, unfortunately, I think is a bit too weak for the metagame right now. Literally doesn't kill anything. Because this is a modern deck. Like if I rattle down like Liliana, like that's why Liliana the Last Hope doesn't actually see any play anymore. I can't kill any of the prowess creatures. I think even for reoccurrence, you might as well just try to use the Tassiger part of this. Okay, that's interesting. I'm still suspicious of the Thought Scour, but definitely if you run this and it works, then you just stick with it, and there's no reason to go back. Wondering how important it is to have so many counter spells, because we do have a lot of counter spells in this deck. It's probably fine. Why not a second Mystic Sanctuary? You're only running one in this deck. Well, I mean, you know what? You could say Archmage's Charm is a little bit of card selection, because you say you don't like this is pseudo card selection. You get to draw 2 cards if you want at end of turn. Triple blue is it is rough. It is rough. But sometimes it's going to be a 4-mana spell. How many like swamps do we have here? 2 swamps. We have actually, so that it's not going to be that bad. We have 21 lands with cantrips. I think Archmage's Charm is going to get cast as a 3-mana spell pretty often. You know what? I don't think Search for Scant is too slow, actually. For 2 mana and put stuff into the graveyard is not too bad. I think the problem... Well, it's a possibility. Search for Scant is a possibility. But it can't find Thassa's Oracle or Inverter of Truth. Like, to some extent, if we have anything in the deck that's going to dig for other cards, we want to be able to dig to our combo pieces and not to other, like, Thoughtseize and Inquisition of Kozilek. But I don't think it's too slow. Search for Scant is going to see its time in the sun once more again. Shelldock blinds combos with Inverter. You may remove the card without paying its mana cost if a library has 20 or fewer cards in it. Oh, okay. So, I get it. Okay, so you exile. You could remove, say, Thassa's Oracle. So you look at the top few cards, exile Thassa's Oracle, then you get to Inverter of Truth. You cast Inverter of Truth, and then the library. Your deck becomes like 2, for example, in theory, and then you can pay a blue and tap it and play the remove card without paying its mana cost if the library has 20 or fewer, which your library will. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Maybe there's room for more of these cards. Maybe there's more. Maybe there's room for a second Shelldock Isle. I could get behind this. This is a pretty cool synergy. This is a really cool synergy. It seems the list needs a tiny bit of utility for more efficiency to set up the combo pieces. Yeah, it probably needs like a little... maybe it probably does need it. If Tassiger isn't good enough at like just getting the cards from the graveyard, because we aren't doing very well at digging for our combo pieces. We're more or less trying to naturally draw them. Not the greatest plan. Like, we can cryptic command a little bit. It probably isn't. What is that impulse? There's a blue impulse for a blue. I guess it's not playable though. Incubation? Unfortunately, the second half is green. This is for a blue. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This can dig for combo pieces, technically, but the second half sucks. It's not very useful. I don't know what the odds... If you put 4 Snapcaster Mages in this deck, I don't know what you would... what's the odds of whiffing, but aside from that, that would take out 8 cards from the main deck. Well, anyway, there's no better way of knowing if this is going to work or not unless you try. Now, we do know that the original deck used Dig Through Time, which definitely helped make this deck a lot more consistent. But then again, you could put in more... trying to think, can you put in more win conditions like Jace, Wield of Mysteries, and I don't know how else to dump your deck. Well, either Serum Visions or Opt. Like, a lot of these control decks, control-ish decks are using Opt. Draken says, so sorry if you talked about this, but wanted to check if you've seen the Wayfold has been 5-0ing with the blue black inverter list that's more cheap card draw and less counters. Would love to see it. Okay, let's take a look at a deck that is working in the metagame. Because I know there is a list that's going 5-0. I don't know how often they go 5-0. Is this the guy? Let's go check it out. Thank you very much for sharing, Draken. Okay, so can I look up this person's name? Hold on, let's look at this list first. Okay, so 4 Thassa's Oracle, 4 Inverter of Truth, 3 Jace Wielder of Mysteries, 1 Cling to Dust, 4 Fatal Push, 3 Inquisition, 4 Opt, 3 Thoughtseize. So Opt again. It just seems to be the better control-ish card right now in Modern, because you can still dig 2 cards deep, still draw a card, still 1 mana, but you can hold up your mana for other things like, well, Remand. Yeah, I totally forgot about this card. Is Remand even playable in Modern anymore? I guess so. Murderous Cut. Oh yeah, this is another way of exiling your graveyard. 3 Relic of Progenitus. That is a pretty smart idea to not only defeat the Uro decks, but it's just a random cantrip in your deck. Oh, an Omen of the Sea. Okay, so this is like... this deck is being a little bit more aggressive. You know what's the downside of this deck? If I know the list, I would just go fucking all out aggro against them because I know they don't actually have many answers. They literally have these 4 Fatal Pushes and this 1 Murderous Cut. And if I have that knowledge in mind, I will just attack. Because I know there's no defense. It's just, the deck is just mostly like sifting air. Because if like by default, I might play a lot more reserved as a creature-based deck, because I assume there's a bunch of removal in their hand, but actually there's not really that much. That being said, all right, so this went 5-0. I wonder if this is the first... When was the last one? Is this... What order is this? Is this September 10th or October 9th? I don't know how they order this. Oh, it says October 9th here. Okay, so relatively recent. Very recent. 1 Cavernous Souls, love it. 4 Dark Slick Shores, 3 Drowned Catacomb, 2 Eldrazi Temple. 2 Eldrazi Temple. Blue Delta, 4 River. Can I really get behind? Add blue mana to your mana pool if you played a land this turn. Add black to your mana pool instead. I don't love River of Tears. I find that this is a very awkward card, but whatever. Snow-Covered Island, Snow-Covered Swamp, 4 Watery Grave. Sideboard, another Cavernous Souls. Blood Chief's Thirst, 2 Aether Gust, 2 Collective Brutality, 1 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Ratchet Bomb, 2 Spreading Seas, 1 Ashiok, 1 Liliana Last Hope, as was suggested. Wonder what deck is this for, though? Maybe humans? Maybe not. I don't know what deck this is for. Maybe it's just for some deck where you need to just grind back the win condition over and over again. Like maybe this is a good card against control for just grinding them out. And it's randomly can be a win condition. This might be a deck that River of Tears belongs in. It might be. And 2 Mystical Dispute. What do you think? Spider Space, what do you think? Here's the version that's actually going 5-0. They have more win conditions and they have a lot more digging. I have to admit, though, I have played with Inverter of Truth and the card itself would just win the game by itself. That's just how it works. 6/6 flyer, not bad. Not a bad card in Modern. Maybe Lily. Oh, yeah, Liliana against Taxes. Actually, that is one good matchup. They all have 1 toughness creatures outside of, like, Giver of Runes. Everything else is a lot of 1 toughness creatures in that deck. So now we go back to the last deck. What is different? Where is our Eldrazi Temples here? And of course, we see this is way heavier on the counter spells than on the scrying and the digging. We might want to integrate some of these things like Omen of the Sea. Does this change anything, though? Or I don't know what aspects do we want to involve. Maybe Remand? It's all inish, but mine as if it were Twin. Well, Twin would still play Remand because it still delays the opponent for a turn while drawing a card. It's like a cantrip that tempos the opponent out. I have to admit, Remand seems crappy in Modern these days, given how mana efficient it is. Like, Modern is so mana efficient, but this Remand was like a Twin-like counter spell. Not to mention, of course, the trick. You can remand your own cards back to your hand in response to opponent's counter magic. I have nothing against this list, though, except we probably need to remove some counter spells to find the combo piece. So, like, if you can't combo off reliably, then you're too heavy on the interaction. Or you need to go, I don't know, Esper control in order to have really powerful planeswalkers like Teferi Time Reveler and Teferi Hero of Dominaria and Supreme Verdict to really slow the game down to the point where you can, like, find your combo pieces and win. Fusion Gaming, ordered on a Sunday, got the cards that following Thursday a couple of weeks ago. Highly recommended. There you go. Says the perfect blue. Fusion Gaming, their reputation is amazing. My favorite local game store. Yes, no, oh yeah, Oracle does dig by itself. But Oracle can even dig even deeper if you've got Omens of the Sea in play. But yeah, let's not underestimate the fact that Thassa's Oracle is like a cantrip in itself. All right, good luck with the deck. I would love to see this deck, like, see play in Modern. Like, everyone wants to play Splinter Twin. There it is! And there's, okay, how many times this guy goes top 8? I want to know. Let's look him up. MTG, Goldfish, Weldfair, tournament finishes. Look at this, Modern League, Dimir Inverter, Dimir Inverter, Dimir Inverter, Dimir Inverter. This is no accident. This is no accident, although this is not super consistent. This was way back in, but he's been doing it for a while. Was on Eldrazi and Taxes, and screw it, we're just going to play one Eldrazi. What was the first version? This was the OG. This was the OG list. Thassa's Oracle, Inverter, Jace. It looks the same. It's identical. This deck did not change. This is way back in July, the 10th of July. It's the same deck. Oh, Flusterstorm's in this deck instead. Very small changes. Very small changes. So something's sort of working with this deck. I think pros should actually pick up this list, see what makes it tick, and I'm sure, I bet it's just a few cards off from being even better than what it is. Like, I bet it's 4 cards off from being even better and taking it over the top. Because this is probably like the Splinter Twin that Splinter Twin players actually want to play. Anyway, thanks for submitting the list, Spider Space, and thanks for the discussion. All right, so that's it for deck list review, and that's it for Coffee and MTG. Who can I raid here? I haven't rated Aspiring Spike in a while. I'm going to rate Aspiring Spike. So thank you very much, everyone. Do you have a take on Luris Folk? I think it's playable. That's my take. I think Luris Folk is very playable. I just haven't spent a lot of time play testing it or anything like that. And we had a great discussion today talking about lands. Talk about the potential. What would Modern look like if they banned the Fetchlands? Well, they would have a very good mana base, but I still believe that the Fetchlands are still fine in Modern for anyone that wants to use them. And so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We had a lot of fun, and I'll see you at the next cup. Take care, and see you next time.